Podcast is going to be on the Local Service Podcast, and I was on Instagram, and one of my friends who I've also worked with, who's done websites and can do graphic design, photography, she asked the question, if there was a podcast I could listen to, it would be about what are the struggles about entrepreneurship, the rejections. Like it sounds like it's tough right now for her, so it'd be nice to hear not the successes or the wins or the dubs, more about like how hard was it. So I thought, hey, part of being in the entrepreneurship space is all about that. And it's true. I mean, you really don't even talk about or think about the rejections until you're kind of out of it. So I'm just going to start. So as you can see, I'm in my office, which is actually in my bedroom. And I run, I suppose, you could call it a successful, let's not call it that. Let's call it a profitable agency. I have one employee, I have one contractor, we have 52 clients. It's enough to pay those two people and me as well. I would say above average, whatever you want to call that. It's comfortable for me. I'm happy with it. I like the direction it's going. So that's where we are now, 4 years into running my business, Symphony Advertising. However, whenever I got started 4 years ago wasn't when I got started. I got started 10 years ago when I was like 22. So let's talk about the struggles. So I went to school. I got an MIS degree, and then I went into the job force. So my first rejections are I cannot get a job to save my life. Like I couldn't get a job that wasn't just a regular job that anybody could get without a degree. So I worked at my first job, my college degree job, was at a place that built ambulances that accepted like convicts, like second chance, which is nothing's wrong with that. But I'm not saying that's bad, but that's where I was accepted, right? A place where if you went to jail and you came, hey, you got a shot here. So that's literally my entrance point. I worked there for like a year and a half, and I was like, hell no, I can't do this. So that's one thing I noticed about myself. Like I did not like not doing anything. That job, I was on Reddit 8 hours a day until I got caught. And there was never enough work. I was never challenged. I never understood. I would speak up. So like I remember they made like you could submit your ideas into like this little box. I was like one of the only ones that put it, and then they did a whole presentation about whoever submitted this in the box. Thank you so much. Like this is a wonderful recommendation. It was like improving their logistics. So at the time, the way things were going from department to department to department, it was like you could just tell, like, dude, why do we have all these steps? Like, what if we just did it this way? And I guess the freaking owners were pretty impressed. And it was like a sizable company. I was like 100 to 150 people. And I was just like, holy crap, that was me. And everybody was mad. Everybody who was an employee there was like, oh, we got to make these changes. I don't know, who would suggest this? And I was like, holy crap, like, I don't, I knew I didn't belong there per se. I never felt like I belonged there. And, I've had okay, let's just talk about that. So I went in there and I quit. Then I tried to get a job literally anywhere to do with marketing. And I'm the same guy. I'm the same amount of smart, the same amount of enthusiasm, the same amount of, let's call it charisma, the same amount of effort, but people would not hire me. And I know why they would not hire me. They would not hire me because I didn't listen. I had my own ideas. I wanted to try things a certain way, and I'm pretty honest. So whenever I would have interviews, I remember like the people would tell me, so you're telling us that if you don't like it here and if you can't, if it's not working out for you, you're going to quit and leave. And I was like, essentially, yes. And I just couldn't get out of that. Like, that's just who I am and who I was. And so like, I never got a good role, and I worked literally like at retail places. Like there was a smoothie shop that I worked at, like selling smoothies. And then out of the, let's say 30 hours a week, I would, spend 2 hours posting on Facebook, and they didn't give me a budget. Like it was just like they just did it so that I would work there. I worked there. I worked at a place called what was I gonna say? I worked at another marketing place that I worked for like 2.5 months. I got fired. I had jobs. My brother has an auto detailing company. I would help him auto detail on the weekend. He would just give me like 60, $70, and I thought that was great. Which like it's kind of it kind of hurts when all your friends have better paying jobs and have college jobs or have like blue collar jobs and they're making money, and I'm over here, yeah, I'm just cleaning cars with my brother. What are you gonna do? That was just the situation I was in. I would referee on the weekends, which I hated. I hate reffing because I'm all about like I was just saying, like, I like breaking the rules or whatever. When you're the ref, you enforce the rule, and it's not really that was the worst part. The worst part was dealing with the parents. Parents would be like, "That wasn't offside. That wasn't out. What are you looking at, ref? What are you doing, ref? You don't know anything." And then, like, in that role, you can't be like, "Hey, how about you shut the hell up?" And I think the pay was like decent because for every like game you would do, it would be like, it was decent. It was like $40 or something like that for like an hour and a half. And at that time, it was good for me. So I did that. I helped my dad. He has like a soccer league, and I helped him register kids because I can use computers and stuff. And he would just give me like half of the amount that he would make, which is crazy. Every year, it was like the best day of like my 10-year period because it'd be a couple $1,000, and it was like a lot at the time. And so yeah, I did that. Where else did I work? I've had some crappy jobs. So I worked at CVS. Literally listening to podcasts all the time, about marketing, about business, and I'm like, dude, I can't even like get into the mix. But yeah, I worked the night shift, not even CVS regular. I worked the night shift at CVS, and I think I paid $12 an hour because it was at night. It would have been 11. So I did that. I worked at this other marketing agency, which it was, but it wasn't good. All I did was post Facebook and Twitter, and again, I like just regular organic posts. And then I went to talk to the owner of the business, small company, bigger than the company I have right now, but it was still small. I'll say like 4 or 5 people. I went in there and I was like, hey, I would like to do Facebook ads. I like to do Google ads. I like to be in client meetings. I like to do sales calls. When you think about it, I kind of get it. Like, you're this off the wall, way too many ideas, have no evidence that you've ever done anything. So they're like, well, I mean, we're not going to let you do that and just sit down and do your job until that opportunity comes up. And I was like, I can't do it. I gotta quit. And it's like, oh, well, don't just quit because you're going to leave us hanging. And I literally walked out the door. I just could not, I could not. Looking back at it and listening to the podcast like now, when they talk about what do they talk about? I was literally thinking about this the other day where it's okay to be in a bad place. It's okay to be in like limbo because you're trying to find where you belong. So if you're constantly quitting, if you're constantly not fitting in, it's because you're not in the right place. You're not where you belong. And I'm not saying that creating a small business is correct for me or is the only correct thing for me. If I had fallen into the right opportunity, if I was hired in the right place, if I walked across the right person, if I talked to the right people, if I was introduced, there's a million things that could have happened, then I really believe that I would be good in a company too. It's just I didn't have that opportunity. So yeah, I quit there. I didn't quit. I stopped there. And I actually left the smoothie place to go here. And then quickly after that, I was like, well, I'm done for. And so I did that. Eventually, I found myself at an agency that paid me $15 an hour for like 4 weeks. And then they're like, okay, we need more hours out of you. And I was like, okay, great. Because they were just, I worked at a dress shop. So this company used to ship dresses for ladies. And I would like literally just pull orders. So orders would come in. I would go to the back, find the dress, put it into, fold it, put it up, and ship it. And then every now and then I would get an opportunity to like make a Facebook post. Again, it was just like I don't think it was the owner's fault in any of these situations. I just think they don't know what they were doing either. So they're like, oh yeah, just hop on and do some marketing, but also pack everything else. Like that was 99% of the job. And then the rest was like, just, so he stays here. But I had the combo of that job and CVS at the time. And then I got the job at, I don't know, I lost my train of thought. But anyways, eventually I end up at this agency that they actually have customers, but they don't have any digital. It's all traditional stuff. And so I go in there and they're like, hey, can you build these websites? Can you do Google ads? And I was like, yes, and yes. And they hired me basically on the spot. 15. They were like, how much do you want to get paid? I was like, 15, because that's just what I was used to. And so, I worked there for like 4 weeks. And then they're like, we need more hours. How's, 30, 40 hours? I was like, great, yeah, I'm down. And they're like, but we can only pay you $10 an hour. So I was like, sure. Like, what choice do I have, right? I want the opportunity to learn, grow, prove myself, have evidence. I didn't know this, right? I was just actually just trying to get money. And so they're like, all right, fine. I was like, fine, fine, $10 an hour. And it still, at the time, it still felt like I was actually making improvements because I don't even think I had a full-time job now that I think about it. And so Yeah, I'm getting paid pennies, okay? And at this time, I'm still living. Okay, I lived uh, at in an apartment with a roommate, and then I couldn't afford it anymore, so I moved back home. I literally moved back home with this $10 an hour job. I slept behind my parents' couch on a futon that was too small that my feet hung off the ledge. It was firm, like it was so firm. It sucked. I was never home because it made me sad. And I just slept behind this couch. And hey, God bless my parents. You know, like that's an amazing parent relationship there, where they're like, hey, you gotta come back, get back on your feet, and do your thing. Thank goodness. So like I stayed there for like 4 or 5 months, maybe, and I was like, I can't. And I'll tell you why I can't. It's because I wanted to date this girl, and I was like, damn, if who I'm still with, I was like, damn, if I'm living at home, like that's not something someone looks in a guy. Like, okay, this guy's. I was probably like 26, 25, 26. If this guy's living at home and has a crappy job, like what is his future? You're not really an asset. You're not really not an asset. You're not an attractive guy if like you have nothing like at all. So I was like, all right, if I at least get my apartment, it shows that I can pay for my own stuff and I can I have my own place. I'm mature enough to live on my own. And so I asked for a raise at that agency, which, to sum it up, it was a good experience because I learned a lot. I got to do everything and I got to prove everything. Like, oh, okay, I actually can do it. I was in sales calls. I literally ran that marketing department on my own, built a team of 3, 4, including me, 5 at one point. That was really short lived. Did reports, did Google Ads, Facebook Ads, Google Ads, landing pages, call tracking, reporting, sales calls. I did everything I do now to a degree. Minus like handling the money, actually like certain aspects. But I learned the bulk of the stuff there. So it paid very crappy, but that's what I learned. So can't knock it that much. So I went when I got this apartment. I had to show because I was contract, by the way. I wasn't getting paid as an employee. I had to pay my own bills, my own taxes, and so I had to prove to the apartments that I was that I had income. But you had to make a certain amount before you can get the place. So the place was like $1,000 a month, and you had to make, I think, at least $2,000 a month, which I wasn't. I was making $1,600 a month, and so I asked my boss, I guess, for a raise, and he's like, "Yeah, sure. Well, we'll do 2,400." I was like, "Okay, great, perfect. Sign this thing, and that I'll be able to get the apartment." And I got it super close to that job because I never liked driving. Like I was always like, I want to, there's a waste of time. Like I just want to get there and come home. And so he approved it. He sent the money. So like I actually had some cash because it was more payment. And then it came around to the time where like you had to put the deposit down. And I was like, hey, I'm waiting for my, my actual payment. I forgot what happened. It was like a month or something passed. And he's like, oh, that wasn't like a raise full time. I need to find that letter. That was just so that I'll give you some money now, but you have to pay me back. I think it might have been like $1,000 or $500 or $800. It really wasn't that much. And I remember being like, dude, I just signed on an apartment. Oh, that's what it is. It was like 2 months free or something, or a month free. So the first month that I got in with that paper, and then the second month or the third month, they're like, okay, you got to pay now. And I was like, hey, I haven't received the increased pay. Like I'm still getting the $400 a month. And the guy was like, yeah, that was just for you to borrow it. Like it's not a raise. It's just like it's actually like a loan. And I was like, and literally for the next like 3 months or 2 months or 5 weeks, I don't remember what it was exactly. I paid out of my paycheck to pay that guy back. And I was like, dude, this is crazy. So I actually had to ask my mom if I could borrow some money because I could not pay for that first month's rent. And so again, God bless my parents, best parents in the world, best mother in the world, best father in the world. My mom like she's like I have I keep money around, Mexican parents. I keep some money around. Here's $1,000 so that you can get on your feet here. And I was like, thank you. Like I literally am at the mercy of like everything because I don't have any money at all. And granted, like I'm also not just like staying home and saving money. Like I'm still going places. I'm still going out. I'm still playing soccer. Like I'm still spending money like on stuff I shouldn't. But when you're making $1,600 a month, that stuff flies away. And so yeah, I'm like, okay, great. And then somehow, some way, we work out like a deal with the that business, and I'm like, hey, can I get a commission on anything that comes in on whatever things? And we ended up closing a deal. Man, things were crazy. We ended up closing a deal that anything that sold for that business through our marketing, we would get a cut of. And so it was actually 50%. Well, it was 50% between the business and the business I was working at, and then it was split between the owner, me, and like the support person we had, which seemed like a lot. So I got 25% of the commission that was earned, but it ended up being like $1,200 per month in addition to what I was getting paid. So then I was eventually making like, like $2,000, $3,000 on a good month. But it was never consistent like that, because I remember I never got more than like 30,000 at that job. I was there for 2 years, so I wasn't really there that long. But that freaking sucked. Like, you're doing all this work, you're supposedly getting results, and like I have nothing to show for it. I literally have nothing. Like I don't. I'm driving my mom's Toyota Sienna from like 2002. Like it's beat the fudge up. Like it sucks. It doesn't work. That breaks down on me. Then I start driving my brother's car that he no longer drives. It's an okay car, but there's a reason no one's driving it. Then that breaks down, but that's way later. Like that car survived me a long time. And so, yeah, that really sucked. Like that whole experience. But those that big, like, everything sucks, I have to figure things out. I mean, that little period of time, those 2 years, is literally where I learned the most. Because again, I was the most hands-on. I built a team. I ran the reports, and I actually have the spreadsheet still, where like I look at our marketing spend, and it was so baby. Looking back at it, like had I been that business owner that I was working for, it's like, dude, we could have took this way further. Like I actually got some talent hired onto there, like real talent that ended up going and doing different things. And this is also my fault, right? Like I just didn't know. Like I didn't know how to like. I could have gone to the customer and been like, or the business owner and been like, hey, look, we're dropping the ball here. Our opportunity is much bigger than what it is. If we were to focus on lead generation for ourselves, we could grow this X, Y, and Z. And it was early. So like it's crazy how, because back then I remember I had to convince people to get a website, to get Google Ads, to run Facebook, to do social media. Now it's like everybody knows. Like I know I need it. How much is it? It's much easier. Back then it was like, let me prove to you why this is a good idea. And so I did that, right? You can call that like the it's weird because it's like the deepest hole I was in. By the way, it was not just like where I was in life at the time. I also had student loan debts, which were like 12 grand. And I also had taxes because I was a contractor. I didn't save any of the money for paying my taxes. And it ended up being like $2,000 that I owed. And that's how much I was getting paid a month, roughly, right? So like, I didn't know where to get the money from. So I had to do a payment plan with freaking tax people for like a year that was like $285. I had like 4 or 6 credit cards. I am not kidding you, that were all maxed out. My American Express was maxed out at like 6,000. My Capital One was maxed out at like 1,800. My Best Buy was not maxed out, but I got like a camera on there because I was still making videos. If you go to my YouTube channel, it's all there. I had like $800 on that. I had my student loans were 12,000. I had a Bank of America one like at 3,000. I think was my limit. So all in all, it was like 20K in debt or something, like 24, 30. I don't know. I don't even remember. And so like it was almost like every single payment that I would make on those credit cards was just the minimum, because that's it. That's all I had. And I remember when I would pay the minimum, I'd be like, okay, because I remember the American Express one was like $183 minimum payment, and when I would pay it, I'd be like, okay, cool, I have $183 worth of credit on here. And then I would be like, all right, cool. I can go do something with this. But here's what I'll say too. One thing I always thought when I was in that moment, I was like, there's no way I don't get out of this. Like, I don't see a world where I don't figure out, where this isn't like easy, where paying the $2,000 tax thing is not gonna, like, I know I'll be able to do that. I don't know how. I don't know when. I don't know where. But I know I'll freaking figure it out. Like, there's no way I'm gonna live my life. Like, I didn't care that I was in debt. I was like, dude, I'm gonna get out of it. There's no way. Like, I'm not just gonna sit at home and like, what am I gonna do? Like, what is life if I'm just, like, that's just, I don't know. That's just the way I saw it. And so I don't know how to fix this camera thing. So I'm sorry. So yeah. So I did that, and luckily, I started applying places. I'm like, this is going nowhere. I wanted more hours. I even asked the guy, like, hey, how do I do sales? And it wasn't going anywhere. You could tell, like, that was it. You hit the end of the road. You've learned enough. You have enough experience to go do something else. And I knew too. Like, I was like, if I were to be the one to just have the relationship with the client, then I could build the clients directly. Not their clients, but if I did it for myself. If I was able to find my own clients. And at the time, I mean, it wasn't a lot, right? Maybe it was like 10 clients. And if I was like, if every client just paid like $500, I didn't even think that crazy. I was like, if every client paid like $200, that's $2,000, as an example, right? 10 clients, $200. I don't know the math. Whatever. Let's just say it ends up being $2,000. I was like, I would rather do that for myself than do it here and like get none of the. It's the same thing, but I'd get my time back. I hated like just being there. You know what I mean? And so, anyways. So I finally applied to some places, and a place that is urgently hired called me, and they're like, hey, you're exactly what we're looking for. And so I go, it's a high growth agency, meaning they already had like 400 customers. They kept going, and they were having some internal issues, so they needed to like rehire their entire staff. And so I was one of those people. I didn't know that. And I remember like sitting there with the CEO, because I was a legit CEO, and he's like, well, what are you looking for to make? And I was like, 50. I just said 50. Like, imagine going from 30 to 50 is like almost doubling. And anyways, it ended up being 45 or 44 because of insurance, which we never got until like a year and a half later. So I got jammed on that. But yeah, it was a huge, huge increase. Because I remember my paychecks were like 1,300, 1,400 maybe. Or 1,300, and I was like, I just made what I used to make in a month in 2 weeks. And I was blown away. I was like, that's it. I've made it. I freaking made it. Funny story. So when with the girl that I was talking about, her, I'm not gonna say it. The reason I moved out, and then on one of our first dates, when I was totally maxed out on all my credit cards, I remember I had enough money to go on our first date to Hopdoddy, and I was able to pay for Hopdoddy. It was like, I don't know, $30, $40, $50, whatever it was. Because we got food and drinks, like a margarita, and then we left, right? And I was like, okay, it was great. It was just a quick date, sit down, talk, leave. And then, I remember she left first, and then I was going to leave. And then I get to the freaking parking thing, and you have to pay like $3 or $2, right? We weren't there that long. And I remember I tried one card, decline. I tried another card, decline. I tried a third card, decline. I tried a fourth card, decline. And I ran out of cards, and I did not have enough money between all my credit cards and debit cards to get out of this freaking parking garage. And I remember I had like some cash. I had like $3 in cash. And the security guard came and I was like, hey, I have this in cash if like you can let me out. But I remember like wanting to cry because I was like, I can't believe I don't have $3 to get out of here. But see, I think this is where you kind of feel like, did I make the right choice? Like, I could have not gone on that date because I didn't have money, but then I would have not started that relationship with the girl that I'm still with 6 years. It's like, what is the right choice? Saving the money and not going on a date and not buying food and drinks when you don't have the money? Okay, well, what's the trade-off? The trade-off is I don't have the relationship. Or I say, hey, let's just go home. But I don't want to be that person. I'm still not that person. We go travel places when we probably shouldn't. We go do stuff when we probably shouldn't. But I'm like, I'll figure it out. It's there. The world is abundant, right? That's just how, one chooses to view it. And things are like, when I say better, I mean like, not even day and night. Like, we're on different planets. So things are great now. But I remember that moment, I was like, dude, this sucks. So yeah, I started at that place. And once I started working there, I was like, okay, I can finally start working on paying off all my debts. I still had every single debt that I mentioned. I had never paid them down. And so it turns out, $45,000 a year after taxes is really not that much. But I was able to move from my parents and from where I was when I was alone, and then we moved in with my girlfriend to our first apartment. We were able to afford it, and it was like the nicest thing on the planet to us. Looking back on it, it was kind of crappy, but it was so nice at the time, and so it was it was nice. It was very nice, and now you have dual income in a way, right? We're splitting rent. I'm paying like slightly less than I was paying when I was living on my own, so I have a little more wiggle room. But like I said, it's really not that much. It's not life changing amount of money. And so while we have a little bit more, we can do a little bit more. I'm paying like barely more than minimum, right? And I'm like making spreadsheets. I'm like looking at it. I'm like, dude, this is not working out. Like, I can't. And what I learned at this last agency that I was at before I got fired was kind of more the process, like how the process works, how the contracts work. It was very intense in speaking to customers because all I did was kind of argue with clients. Not me argue. I would have clients argue with me because things weren't working, they weren't being explained, and I was just the face. So everything they were upset about, they spoke to me about, and I couldn't do anything. That's what I hated. I've always hated it. It's like I have no control. I couldn't give you a solution because I don't do any of the actual marketing. I couldn't give you, any money off because that's not my call. I couldn't let you out of your contract because then, I get points deducted against me, and also that's literally my job. I have to sit here like a robot and say, well, customer, unfortunately, because you signed a contract, you signed an agreement. I made the suggestion, hey, instead of calling it a contract, let's call it an agreement. That sounds a little bit less, less intense. Oh yes, wonderful idea. And I learned a lot there, and it's actually a good business. And I'm surprised I was fired, to be honest. Like I was down for the cause. I was like, dude, this place is awesome. I was never like trying to leave until they hired people. And again, I didn't agree with certain people because they're like middle manager people, or people that like you don't know anything about marketing. It doesn't sound like you know about people. I don't believe you. I'm not gonna listen to you. And so, yeah, it was a good experience, but it was hell. Like it was literally hell. Different kind of hell. I actually prefer the other hell where I was learning how to do marketing versus this hell where it was like I'm literally a caught in the machine or whatever you say. And luckily enough, I did get fired. I was asking for it, really. I was looking for it. I got fired, and are these all wins at this point? Like in the grand scheme of things, where I'm at now, those are all L's, and the whole process is L's. School was fun. University of Houston was fun. I partied. I made friends. I didn't get a career out of it. L. The jobs I got, L's. The places I lived, L's. The girl I met, W. Right? The skills I learned, W. Just going through that hardship. Like now that you go through things like that, it's like, okay, well, what? What's gonna happen now? Like, how far do I have to fall to go to that? And I've always thought to myself, like, there's no way I'd ever go homeless. I have enough friends. I have enough family. I've made enough good relationships in this world that I think I'm good, whether I have stuff or not. So yeah, I got fired, which is literally like you could say your my value was increasing, and blah, right? It's all gone. No job, no income, nothing, and we're still living at that apartment we initially got. And I remember calling. I have a video on YouTube. I called my girl. I was like, hey, I just got fired. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna figure something out. But I actually see. I've always had a little bit of like I want to test things out. I that previous place I was working at, I actually reached out to them while I was working at that bigger agency and said like, hey, do you need help with anything? Because like I'm available if you need it. I can do it on the side. And the guy was like, actually yes, we need a lot of help. And I think he was paying me $400 for like a year. So I mean that helps a lot. It turns 45 into 53. I mean it's a big deal. And so I had that relationship. So as soon as I got fired, I was like, okay, I'm going to talk to him. But, that doesn't seem like the best route to go. I had some other connections that I had built over time, just people I met. And, so like Friday, I get fired. I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm like, well, what do you think I should? I've always wanted to start my own business. Like I knew I always wanted to talk. There's a guy that at the agency I worked at, we sat down to eat. He's like, hey, well, what do you, where are you from? Like, what do you do? What are your interests? And my interests were literally, I like marketing. I like the idea of business. And I think one day I'm going to open something up. I really, truly believe I will at least try. And so here was the opportunity. Here we are. Like, and I even wanted to save money before I quit, right? I even wanted to pay off my debts. But I didn't. It just wouldn't happen. It would have taken forever. It would have been 10 years. I'd still be in that same job had I not gotten fired. Hopefully not, though. So I was like, all right. I talked to my girlfriend, I talked to my brother, and I talked to my parents. And I say, hey, I think I want to start my own business. My own freelance at the very little, at the very least. What do you guys think? Should I do it? They're all like, yes, you've been doing this forever. You know what you're doing. You sound capable. If you need money, let us know. And I was like, all right. So, then that's kind of like the tipping point of where everything starts. Like where the latest evolution, right? You could always fall and you could always keep growing. And so, hit the Rolodex up, aka my phone. I I text everybody like, hey, I just got fired, looking for opportunities. Can we talk? So I spoke to one guy, spoke to another guy, and then immediately, I've always been about action. So that's one thing to learn is that I've always posted at every place I've worked. I've always spoken about it. Not that I have huge following or any interest really, but like it's just something I naturally like to do. And so I grab my phone, I just post on Facebook, and I'm like, hey, I just got fired. If anybody needs help with anything digital marketing related, here are the things I know how to do. I will help you whether you have money or not. I'm just looking to get more experience. Let's get started. And so like literally I think within the first month I started making money. I think it took me 2 months to make what I was making at my previous agency, like the not so great one. And then it took me like maybe like 6 months to start making what I was making at my main, like my real job. And so, for the first like year, it was pretty like, it wasn't consistent. Sometimes I'd make $2,000, sometimes I'd make $5,000. And when I made $5,000 the first time, I was like, holy crap, this is crazy. And it's funny because, then people, when you start, what's crazy is once you start like doing things for yourself, it's actually when you attract more people, like more businesses, more people that want to hire you. Like I started getting job offers because like, hey, you're starting your own business, you know what you're doing, and you have skills and you're passionate about it. We need you. And it's like, what the hell? And so like I actually this other agency tried to hire me and I was like, no. And they're like, well, how much? And I was like, I mean, okay, if I had a say, I was like, 6,000? I just said that because I used to get paid 4. If you want me to go into the office and run like a team, because they had a team, I was like, I do it for 6, because I guess that's worth my time. I just threw it out there. They're like, I wasn't expecting that. We could do 4, and I was like, okay, 4,000 a month, and I'm already making 2 on my own. That's $6,000. I was like, oh my god, $6,000. If I did that for a year, that's $72,000. This is crazy, which it was at the time. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And so I did that for like 3 months. It didn't work out because I was never wanting to work there. We tried it out, and I was ready to be on my own. But I thank that company a lot because they helped me get out of debt. Like I paid my student loans off in like those 3 months because I took that money finally. Right? It's so crazy. Now that I didn't have a job, I was able to pay for more stuff. And I actually made so much money in the first year that I was able to we were able to get a new apartment. That because I had like this crazy 3-month streak. I thought it was crazy. It was it was nice. And I think for where we currently live, we had to put like you had to make at least like 4,000 or something like that, like 3 times the amount of the rent or something like that. I don't know what it was, but it seemed like a lot. I was like, I don't have a W-2. I don't have like tax statements. I just started this. Like I don't have anything, and luckily, like I had those 3 months where like I got payments from both myself and from my that place, and yeah, it ended up being like, oh wow, you're making decent money. But then once I left that place, my income went down a lot. So I was there for a little bit. I think I hit one time. I remember one time I got paid by the place. I got paid by like 2 websites, and I was like, this is crazy. Like this is more than I made like in like half a year back then. And so I was blown away. And so like when you start feeling those little things, you're like, holy crap, I can really do this. But it's all finesse. Like you have to have all the skills in order to go through that, because if not, you're going to drop the ball. And that's okay. I tried opening up an agency twice. Once when I was in college, called Pomegranate Group, and again during like my little spiel where I didn't have a job, really. It was called Productive Ants. And then finally the third time, Symphony Advertising. It's working. Why? Because I've experienced. And also when you get older, a lot of your network starts stuff or works somewhere that they need your services, right? So like, imagine you are a chef and you have a restaurant. That's a terrible example. Imagine you're a coach and then all your friends want to, get in shape. Oh, okay. Let's use him. It's just natural, right? Like everybody knows, oh, he can make websites, he can do Google Ads, he can get you more customers. Let's use him. And so, it's a natural thing as long as you're ready for it. And there really hasn't been any setback since. Except, like, you learn things, right? Like, you hire some people that you shouldn't have. You buy some things that you shouldn't have. You don't save for taxes. You're not ready for that. You have bad client interactions, but that's normal. That's going to happen. In fact, I mean, the first 2 years, I did more like odd jobs. I didn't have like a set price list or a set package or a set anything. It was just like, okay, how do I figure this out? And luckily, I met some people. There's YouTube, and I took what I liked or what made sense to me, and I ignored everything else. And so, yeah, I would say those are pretty much the setbacks currently. The downfalls, the rejections, and being once you're on your own, like the rejections just like amplify because there's how many calls do you have about a new customer that say no? How many? You might be good at it. I think we do pretty well. Certain people, contractors won't want to work with you. People won't want to listen to your ideas. People say you suck, unless you're good. Like once you get good, that's when it gets really good. Because like now, I haven't made a cold email, a cold call. I haven't done any outbound type of like direct sell. I don't think ever really. It's been very few. Like now that we have the inbound working, so organic SEO, Google Ads, social media on every platform you can think of. Word of mouth is great. Literally, I'll just get a text like, "Hey, Caesar, this person told me about you, looking to get more information." I'll make them a Loom video talking about what we do, how we do it, the pricing, the process, and then they pay that day. Like it's actually absurd how, like, not easy, but like after you build enough up, like it becomes easier. It's hard at first, and then more evidence that you have, like this business can help you out, then you're good. And so it's a long process. Not to say that I've hit the end of the road or that it'll continue to be like this, because it may not, right? Google Ads may say, hey, we're actually done with the Google Ads program. We're shutting it down. That's like the main reason people join us, right? We do web design too, but that's not going to be a reason why they pay a higher amount if they just get a website. And there's local SEO, but that's always been like, organic has always been like a black box solution. Like we don't really know what's going on there. We just do the best things that may lead to more customers, which luckily it's still working. And there's social media. There's so much that's always changing, so no one really knows what is to come. But shout out to the person who posted that Instagram story, and I want to call you out. But yeah, I thought that was an interesting perspective as to what and why people talk about. Interesting perspective of the failures, of the rejections. And so it's a lot of failures at first, hopefully some successes, and hopefully enough success just to get, think about it. I mean, the way I always thought was like, dude, if I could just make enough to pay my rent, okay, kill the debt. That'll always be a bad thing to do. If I had enough money just to pay my rent, pay my bills, and then some to eat and go out a little bit, happy as can be, right? And then once you get there, and you can go a little bit further, a little bit further, a little bit further, then it gets a little bit more fun. But yes, that concludes this local service podcast. Weird episode about rejection and, I guess the climb. Let me know if anyone has questions. This is my bedroom. We're trapping out the bedroom. Caesar at symphonyadvertising.com or visit our website at symphonyadvertising.com later.